Hey guys, tonight we're exploring why your mind won't let you rest together. As we begin with the loop that almost everyone listening to this knows by heart. The one where your body is exhausted, your eyes are heavy, and your mind will not stop turning the same thought over and over. Like a stone, it refuses to put down. Right now, as you're watching this, someone else is watching it too. A different country, a different time zone, a different life, but the same quiet hour. Tonight we're exploring why your mind won't let you rest together. If this is your first video here, take a look around. Subscribe if it feels like home, and leave a comment your location, your time. That small act of saying, "I'm here," does something. It reminds all of us that we're not as alone in this as the dark sometimes makes us feel. Dim the lights. Maybe pull a blanket over yourself if there's one nearby. Let's begin. You know this feeling. You're lying down. The lights are off. Your body has done everything right. It's tired. It's still. It's ready. And yet, your mind is doing laps. The same sentence, replayed. The same scenario, rehearsed for the 5th, 6th, 10th time. A worry that has already been thought all the way through, and somehow needs to be thought through again. This is the overthinking loop. And if you live with it, you already know its strange cruelty. It doesn't feel like choice. It doesn't feel like something you're doing on purpose. It feels like something happening to you. A wheel that keeps spinning long after the car has stopped moving. Tonight, I want to explain what's actually happening inside that loop. Not to give you a 5-step technique to switch it off. Those rarely work at 1 a.m. anyway. But to help you understand the mechanism well enough that it loses some of its power over you. Because here's something worth knowing before we go any further. The loop is not a flaw in your thinking. It's a function of your thinking, running in a context it was never quite designed for. Psychologists have a specific word for this pattern: rumination. It comes from an old word for the way cattle chew, swallow, and re-chew their food. The image is almost too perfect. Your mind, taking the same piece of experience, swallowing it, and bringing it back up again to chew on once more. Rumination is different from regular thinking in a few important ways. Regular thinking moves. It asks a question, considers some possibilities, and arrives somewhere. Even if that somewhere is just, "I'll figure this out tomorrow." Rumination doesn't move. It circles. It asks the same question again and again, without ever quite landing. Researchers have found that rumination tends to cluster around 3 things. Things we did that we wish we hadn't, things we're afraid might happen, and questions about ourselves that don't have clean answers. Did I handle that conversation badly? What if the thing I'm dreading actually happens? Am I doing enough with my life? The mind treats these like unsolved problems. And unsolved problems, to your brain, register as a kind of threat, something unfinished, something that needs resolution before it's safe to fully let go. The trouble is, most of what keeps you up at night isn't actually solvable at 1 a.m. There's no new information available to you in the dark that wasn't available in the daylight. And yet, your mind keeps trying anyway. Like someone searching a dark room for keys they already know aren't there. To understand why this happens, it helps to go back much further than tonight, further than this week. Back to the kind of environment your brain was actually built for. For most of human history, an unresolved problem could genuinely mean danger. A conflict with another person in your small tribe could threaten your safety. An unexpected change in your environment could threaten your food supply. The brain's job, then, was to flag anything unresolved and keep it active in awareness until it was dealt with. This system worked well for thousands of years, because most unresolved problems back then were the kind you could actually do something about. You could repair the relationship. You could find more food. You could move to safer ground. But modern unresolved problems are different. The email you're worried about. The thing you said that might have landed wrong. The 5-year plan that doesn't feel certain. These are problems your ancient alarm system still flags as urgent, but they're rarely problems you can solve through more thinking, especially not at night, especially not alone, especially not without the other people or contexts involved. So the alarm keeps ringing, not because something is wrong with you, but because you're carrying an ancient survival system into a modern world it was never quite designed for. There's something else worth understanding here. Why the exact same thought feels so much heavier at night than it did at noon. During the day, your mind has competition. Tasks, conversations, sounds, decisions. All of it pulls your attention in different directions, which means no single worry gets your full, undivided focus for very long. At night, that competition disappears. The room goes quiet. The to-do list is finished, or at least paused. And the thought that had been waiting patiently in the background all day finally gets the stage to itself. There's also a biological piece. Cortisol, your body's alertness hormone, begins rising in the early hours of the morning, hours before you'll actually get up. This means your nervous system is becoming more vigilant, precisely while you're trying to rest, which makes every thought feel more urgent, more dangerous, more now than it actually is. This is why a thought that felt manageable at 3 p.m. can feel unbearable at 3 a.m. The thought hasn't changed. Your context has. Understanding this doesn't make the loop disappear, but it does something almost as valuable. It lets you stop believing the loop's version of events. The catastrophe your mind is rehearsing at this hour is not more true simply because it's louder right now. It's just less interrupted. Not everyone experiences this loop with the same intensity, and it's worth understanding why. Research on rumination has consistently found that people who are highly conscientious, highly empathetic, or who tend to take responsibility for outcomes, even outcomes partly outside their control, are more prone to this pattern. So are people who grew up needing to anticipate problems before they happened, whether that was managing a difficult household, navigating an unpredictable relationship, or simply being the kind of child who learned early that thinking ahead kept them safer. If you're someone who replays conversations, who drafts arguments in your head with people who aren't even in the room, who mentally rehearses difficult outcomes before they've happened, this isn't a character flaw. It's a strategy your mind built, often a long time ago, because at some point it worked. Anticipating problems probably did protect you, or someone you cared about, or some version of a situation you needed to manage. The trouble is that strategies built for specific situations don't always know when to retire. They keep running long after the situation that created them has changed. Your mind isn't malfunctioning when it loops at night. It's running an old, well-worn program that once served a real and important purpose. What ancient thinkers understood about unresolved thoughts. There's an idea, explored long before modern psychology existed, that's worth sitting with here. Stoic philosophy drew a sharp line between two categories of things: what is within our control and what is not. The Stoics wrote often about the exhaustion of trying to manage things that simply weren't theirs to manage. Outcomes, other people's opinions, the unpredictable turns of fate. The overthinking loop, in many ways, is a refusal to accept that line. It's the mind insisting that if it just thinks hard enough, long enough, carefully enough, it can secure an outcome that was never fully within its control in the first place. There's a kind of mercy in accepting the line instead of fighting it, not passivity. Stoicism was never about giving up, but a clear-eyed recognition that thinking about a problem and solving a problem are two very different activities. And the second one usually requires daylight, other people, and real-world action, not 2 a.m. rehearsal. One Stoic teacher put it simply: people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the view they take of them. The event that's keeping you up tonight is fixed. It already happened, or it hasn't happened yet. What's actually exhausting you is the story your mind keeps retelling about it, and that story, unlike the event, can be gently set down. Here's something important. Trying to forcefully stop a ruminating thought almost never works. Telling yourself, "Stop thinking about this," tends to do the opposite. It keeps the thought active, because now you're thinking about not thinking about it, which is, ironically, still thinking about it. What tends to work instead is something quieter, not suppression, but redirection. Giving the thought somewhere to go that isn't round and round in your head. One approach researchers have found genuinely effective is externalizing the thought, writing it down, even briefly, even in a few scattered words. There's something almost mechanical about this that works. When a thought is only in your head, your mind treats it as unfinished business, something it has to keep holding on to in case you forget it. The moment it's written somewhere else, a notes app, a scrap of paper by the bed, your mind gets a strange kind of permission to release its grip, because the thought now exists outside of you, where it won't be lost. Another approach is scheduling the worry, not at 2 a.m., but deliberately. The next day, a specific 10 or 15 minutes set aside to think the thought all the way through, on purpose, with your full attention. When you actually have the resources to do something useful with it. This sounds almost too simple to work, but it changes your mind's relationship with the thought. Instead of, "This needs to be solved right now, in the dark, alone," it becomes, "This has an appointment. It will be handled, just not at this hour." And the simplest, perhaps most important shift for tonight specifically, is just remembering, gently, that you do not owe this thought a resolution right now. It will still exist in the morning. It will still be just as real, just as worth thinking about when you actually have full daylight and a clear head and access to whatever resources you need. So here you are, tonight, maybe in the middle of your own loop right now. I'm not going to ask you to solve it. I'm not going to ask you to think your way out of it, because the thinking is the loop, and you can't usually exit a loop by doing more of the thing that's looping. What I'll ask instead is much smaller. Just notice that the thought is old. Not new information arriving, just an old visitor, returning again, the way it always does at this hour. Notice that the urgency you feel about it is mostly a trick of the time. The same thought at noon, with a friend beside you, with the sun out, would not feel nearly this large. And notice that you do not have to follow it all the way down tonight. You can let it visit, acknowledge that it's there, and let it go again. Not because you've solved it, but because some things are not meant to be solved in the dark, alone, at this hour, by you. I want to speak slowly now to whoever is still listening, still turning something over in their mind. Whatever it is, let it be smaller, just for tonight. You have already thought about it. You have already turned it over more times than it needed. Your mind has done its due diligence, even if it doesn't feel finished. It is allowed to be unfinished tonight. The conversation you're replaying will still be there tomorrow, if it needs revisiting. The decision you're circling will still be waiting, with the same options, in the morning. Nothing about your situation gets worse by you finally letting your mind rest. So let the thought slow down, like a wheel finally losing momentum, turning less, quieter each time. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing lengthen. Let the thoughts that come now be looser, farther apart, less insistent, until they're barely thoughts at all anymore. Just shapes, just shadows, passing through instead of staying. You don't have to finish anything tonight. You don't have to arrive anywhere. You only have to let this one loop, just this one, just for now, come gently, finally, to rest. If this reached you tonight, leave a comment. Just your city and the time. And if you want more nights like this one, subscribe. We're here every Monday and Thursday. Same quiet place, same honest voice. Good night, wherever you are.